little bit of background on my work here at City College. I've been in the transfer center now going on 12 years, in my 13th year. I was a former student many years ago. Sat in the seats actually down other end of the hall in 100 in physics class. So I understand the process of transfer. I want to try to share that with you so that you can hopefully understand it a little bit better and what your options are. What we want to cover today is quite a bit. And as you just said, if you have any questions at any point, please raise your hand and I'll try to answer your questions. What we want to cover today are what are your options relative to colleges attended in terms of degrees. There are various kinds of degrees that you can earn in higher education. I'll show you that on a academic pyramid slide. Statistics. So we have many students that transfer, and I'll show you some general numbers in terms of how many transfer, where we're transferring to. In terms of requirements, that one's really important. I want to try to spend a good deal of time going over minimum transfer requirements if you're interested in transferring to either a California State University or a University of California. Privates, that can be a little bit tricky, but I'll talk a little bit about that. Cost comparisons between the three general options, transfer to a CSU, UC, or private. And there are some fairly common transfer questions that students ask, and I'll try to cover some of the basic ones throughout the slides. And then in terms of engineering specifically, we'll see the challenges of trying to transfer to some campuses that you may have in mind, but I'll show you how challenging that can be in some of the later slides. Transfer admission guarantee. How many have heard of transfer admission guarantee as a possible option? Some of you have. Okay. So in the University of California, they have this program called Transfer Admission Guarantee. If you meet requirements, you are guaranteed transfer to one of 6 UC campuses, and I'll show you which campuses those are later. And then I'll talk in general about the services that we offer in our transfer center. So after high school, these are generally options that our students have. There are 115 now California community colleges in California. So many students that come into the transfer center, oftentimes they may have attended several, and that's fine. All of that work combined together is going to help you transfer. So keep that in mind. Also, if you've attended a university, came to a California community college like ours, and your plans to transfer, again, that is definitely possible. 23 CSU campuses. It says 10 UCs. One of those UCs is UC San Francisco, which specializes in post-baccalaureate degree programs in terms of master's degrees, doctorate degrees. So it actually is 9 undergraduate UC campuses. So here's the academic pyramid. As you can see at the very bottom is what we do in community college. And you may have heard the term lower division as opposed to upper division. It's the very next portion of the pyramid. The lower division units are what is available in community college. We only offer lower division courses. If a student had started at a university and stayed there long enough to earn a bachelor's degree, then they're working up the pyramid. So they would start as a freshman, sophomore at a university, and then in their junior and senior years, be working to do upper division work. So if you've heard those terms, lower division, upper division, generally that's what they refer to in terms of your class status. And in terms of various degrees, here's some handouts. As you can see on the right-hand side, in community college, we offer 2 types of associate degrees. Something that's been fairly recent, I think it started in 2011, the associate degrees for transfer, designated with the AEDT. And then more commonly, what I call the traditional associate degrees, the AAAS option. And certainly certificates. We have plenty of certificates that you can earn while you're in community college. Once you transfer, then the goal is to work towards a bachelor's degree, and there are various options as far as that goes. And then your post-bac options are once you have your bachelor's degree in hand. There's some handouts here. You guys can grab them, 1 each. And as far as being students here, one of the factors that you may or may not know is if you're considering transfer to a UC campus, for all of the students that apply to UC that are considered to be transfer applicants, this could be from community college, it could be from one university to the UCs, it could be within the UC system itself. Those that are attending community colleges in that large pool of all transfer applicants are at the very top. You're considered very first. A little bit too fast, sorry. So as I briefly mentioned, there are 6 UC campuses, again, that participate. Generally, when I explain the tag program option as far as the UC system is concerned, I tell students that, remember, there are 9 undergraduate UC campuses, 3 do not participate with the tag program. To me, that's a little bit simpler to remember. UC Berkeley, UCLA, UC San Diego do not participate with the tag program, which means that the other 6 do participate. Okay. And of course, we have a variety of classes that you can take, and oftentimes we'll see students having changed their majors several times. And that's kind of the beauty of community college, that you have that flexibility and options.
It should work. Just... Oh, sorry. I know what I did something wrong. Sorry. Okay. Try now. Yeah, that was my fault.
Okay.
It was, yeah.
These are numbers relative to those that are transferring to the California State University system. That's where the majority of our students transfer. I went to some state myself. So as you can see, there's sort of a trend where downward, and the transfer numbers sort of reflect what the enrollment was like maybe 3 or 4 years prior to that particular year. And so generally there's a decline. I think if you go back to around the time of the recession, around 2011, 2012, that's when enrollment was sort of at its peak, and then it sort of tapered down since then. Interestingly, though, for UC transfer, trend tends to be upward. I can't really explain that because the degree of difficulty for UC transfer generally is high. So that shows that we have students that are aiming high or high achieving. That's excellent. Combined together, generally there is that trendward down. In terms of where our students are transferring to, I don't have statistics on the private universities, so I'm only reflecting the public universities, including UCs and CSUs, in terms of the top 7. Number 1 is going to be San Francisco State. I think for a lot of reasons. It's just in terms of proximity, in terms of the situation the student has. That's where most of our students go. But we have quite a few that go to Berkeley, Davis, there's East Bay, San Jose, Santa Cruz, and UCLA. And these numbers generally stay fairly consistent over the past 3 to 5 years, I would say. Let's see, I have one FAQ. Let's see what this one says. Okay. This was a little bit tricky, but let me see what your answers might be. When students want to find a list of courses that transfer, what sources are you going to? What are you looking at to determine what transfers to a CSU or UC? Anyone have an answer? Assist.org, yes. And as you may have seen, Assist has gone through some changes, right? It looks very different now. To me, that's still where I'm going to get that information. You can also go to our website to look up course descriptions. In the course descriptions, it should tell you if the course transfers to a CSU or UC. Excuse me, there's some handouts you can grab on your way up. Now, the number of courses that we are offering, as you may know, has declined. I'm not sure if that number is still true. We have quite a few that transfer. And so, again, just check to make sure that if you're wondering if you are taking classes that transfer, check assist.org, check your course descriptions in either the online information or I'm running out of handouts on this end.
You want some?
Maybe a few of the yellows and the whites. I think he's okay, not that many on this side. Okay. Maybe consolidate.
Yeah, you just want them all on your side, maybe?
About the middle.
I think if people walk in, they'll get there. Okay, it's okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right, so this is an important slide. In terms of minimum transfer requirements, this is true for any California State University, whether you're considering San Francisco State, San Jose State, San Diego State, everything is going to depend on this information. By the time you're ready for transfer, you must have earned 60 CSU transferable semester units. Have at least a 2.0 transferable grade point average. And then there is I didn't read the sheet today, but there is a general education sheet for CSU transfer that you may or may not have seen in counseling offices. That sheet, if the student were to complete all areas on that sheet, he would earn 39 general education units. But what they're looking for is that you complete the majority of that sheet in the way of 30 or 39.
Are you referring to?
Yes. Yeah. I think we should pull that up.
Yeah.
But let's go through this first. Okay, then we'll pull up that sheet. Thank you. The golden 4 is on that GE sheet. The golden 4 refers to 4 areas. I'm going to take a look at that sheet. Hang on. Do you want me to bring it up? Okay. Thank you.
We can bring it up.
That's okay.
No? Okay.
Let's just go through this here.
Sure, sure.
Okay, so on that GE sheet, we'll pull it up in a moment. The 4 areas that are involved are going to be oral communication. You must have a speech class. Written communication, that's our English 1A at City College of San Francisco. Critical thinking, I'll explain that comment about waiving that requirement for engineering students in a moment. And then lastly, quantitative reasoning. So for the majority of majors, if you want to transfer to a California State University, this is minimum. This is step 1. Now, you may have heard, and the suggestion might have been to focus on major preparation. So if you're choosing engineering, you certainly have a lot of classes that you'll need to complete if you decide that that's the major that you want to pursue. So to focus on those classes is good strategy, but this has to be step 1. You have to make sure that you're clear that this is a must. If you don't have this, it doesn't matter if you've done major prep. It doesn't matter if you have straight A's. You got to have this by your final semester. This is assuming we're aiming for a fall admission. Okay. Okay. Let's switch and let's go to let's Google CCSF articulation.
Okay, so go to the CCSF website first.
You can just Google it.
Just Google it?
I think
Okay.
that's fine. CCSF
All right.
articulation. We should be able to see a
CCSF.
link to that.
Everyone know how to spell articulation?
Yeah,
ARTI.
ARTI.
Good. Nice. We're getting our learn on. There we go.
Grab that first one.
This first one? Okay.
On the right-hand side, it says CSU GE towards the bottom, or cheeks.
This one?
One
No,
just above that.
this one.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then let's pick 1920 at the top. Okay, and then if you can make that a little bit larger.
Yep.
Okay,
Oops, hold on. Sorry.
so this may be hard to see, but as far as this handout, if you've seen this handout before, then this is what it looks like. It changes colors every year. I think it's blue this year. And if you can scroll down, because there you go. Okay, so here are the golden 4. This is oral communication. This is your written communication, English 1A. Critical thinking is here. And lastly, math and quantitative reasoning is over here. So you must have at least one class from each of those 4 areas, C grade or better. That's part of the minimum. Okay. Now, in terms of waiving this, I would say as a general rule of thumb, it's always a good idea, regardless of whether your major is engineering or not, to have a class from critical thinking. Okay, it's going to be beneficial in the long term. If you run into a pinch, if you're in a position where you have everything else, you've done the rest of the minimum requirements, you've done all the major prep, the one thing that you're shy is this, that for engineering majors, more than likely is going to be okay. Check with a counselor. There is a website that will go to see to make sure that for that particular CSU campus, what they call waiving of area A3 is acceptable. Okay, so just want to give you that option and heads up. Okay, question, thought.
So if I take English 1A and 1B, those cover all three of them, correct?
All three of them.
Oral, written, and critical.
If you did English 1A and 1B, you said?
Yeah.
Not the oral. So that's communication studies as opposed to English. So English 1A is only going to satisfy this. And then we would recommend that you do a second English composition course for critical thinking, because there are, I would say, in at least some cases for CSU transfer, a second English composition course is required for graduation purposes. And that's another sort of distinction. When you're trying to satisfy requirements, especially if you're thinking of transferring to a CSU campus, try to keep in mind that there are generally three types of requirements that you're trying to fulfill. Okay, one is general education. So that's with, just go to the top of the sheet.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is general education. All right, so this is one category of requirements, right? That's one. Two is going to be the major. So if you've seen assist.org, while it's gone through a sort of a facelift change, basically that's where your major prep information will be. Okay, that's two. The third category is graduation requirements, right? So when you are taking classes, either community college or at universities, the bulk of their classes that you'll be taking are going to be for the major, going to be for general education. But you're not going to be able to get your degree unless you've satisfied also these graduation requirements. Okay, so at least some of these CSU campuses, they require 2 English composition courses, lower division, as part of their graduation requirements. So that's why we recommend that for critical thinking, that you consider a second English composition course. Okay. Any questions about this?
So one thing to note, when you do transfer, and you haven't taken one of these, you're finding this freshmen and sophomores for that class. You see, and if you're a spring transfer, again, it's even more harder because what people take first English and then they take the second English. Now you don't these people that have priority written stream. If you don't have priority written stream, you transfer. You pick your classes after the months. So that's one thing that you also the fact that you will become a tutor or whatever in CSU. I'm not sure if they have that. I mean, at the CSU, that's the CSU. Is you have to pass an exam, a writing exam, or you go take another English class. Prepare for public.
Yeah, so that will depend on which university you transfer to. That's true of San Jose State. At San Jose State, they require these 2 lower division English comp courses, and that only positions you to take a written exam. And upon passing that exam, that allows you to take an upper division course, a written composition, to get your degree. That's San Jose in particular. It may not be that way across the CSU system. That's one example.
I know you're at San Francisco State. I'm at Sacramento State.
Uh-huh.
And we also, I think I keep it too. It's called writing intensive. For engineers, I think it's one particular class that we take. With other disciplines, they can take a vast amount or whatever. Yeah. So for engineers, it's typically one class, and the 5 years with
Then I would categorize again as a graduation requirement. Right? Okay. Any other questions about this? Yes.
If my understanding is correct, in regards to if you do decide to waive 1B, which is the critical thinking, it'll entirely depend on what university, and if that was a prerequisite to either your major or an upper division course to take 1B or not.
So what I showed on the slide, that's minimum eligibility for students that want to be in position to be considered at that particular campus. And so if you apply to an engineering major, and there are a few other majors too that sort of fall to that same category, then we'll check to make sure that at that particular campus, they're allowing students to waive that for admission purposes. Okay, so if that is the case, they allow that to be waived, you don't have it, and you're admitted, right? Then you have a whole other slew of requirements to finish your bachelor degree requirements. That could include a second English comp course. It could include upper division written composition course, right? So generally, that's why we would say it's a good idea, regardless of whether you're an engineering major and that particular requirement can be waived, to have that completed anyway, because that will serve you well in the long run. Okay.
Back to the slides? Yeah, sure.
Okay, any other questions about this? So this is real key. This is step one, okay? All right, so when you are in position to apply, what's really important is to know filing periods. If you're considering admission for a fall, let's take the current cycle as an example. Students that want to be admitted fall of next year, they're working on applications right now, okay? So the filing period began, oops, I want to do that. Sorry. The filing period began October 1st. The deadline is the 30th of this month. For domestic students, international students may have a little bit more time depending on their major, but for domestic students, this is your filing period again for consideration for fall admission. Part of the factors that may come into play is whether or not you are attending a community college local to the particular CSU that you're interested in transferring to. The reason for that is within the CSU system, there is a term used that can have an influence on how easy or difficult it will be to transfer. It's called impaction. Okay, so impaction can be for specific majors. Impaction can be for the campus as a whole. And generally, impaction means that they get more applications than they have space available. Okay, so the minimum requirements that we just saw, you must have that to be eligible. If you're applying to an impacted program or to an impacted campus, right, that 2.0 GPA that you saw, you may have to have a much higher GPA to be competitive to the impacted program or to the impacted campus. Okay. If that is the scenario, if that was the case, let's take an example. Let's say San Diego State. San Diego State is an impacted campus. All majors are impacted. For San Diego State, they look to their local community colleges first, and those students first when it comes to transfer. Okay. Our students are going to be considered non-local. Okay. Another factor is
What's
remember,
local for city?
We have been local to San Francisco, of course, right?
Okay.
East Bay, and now San Jose. That's a change.
Well, that's new.
That's new.
That's new because
Yeah.
San Jose was not previously.
Not previously. So a year ago, San Jose State, like San Diego State, impacted campus, all majors impacted. Our students were considered non-local. That's a change. They included the city or the county rather of San Francisco as a part of their local status. That's a good thing. Okay, so if you're considering San Jose State, then you will be among those first considered for transfer.
So now we have 3 schools that are local. So CSU East Bay,
Yeah.
San Jose, and SF State.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Good.
And remember, you need 60 units minimally, right? Okay. So as I had said earlier, it's possible that a student may have attended several community colleges. So we'll take let's take the San Diego State example again. If you started here at CCSF and you wanted to attend San Diego State, if you physically moved down to San Diego, attend one of those local community colleges, complete the majority of your 6 units for transfer to one of those community colleges, then those 2 factors, this one and that one, would be in your favor. Okay? So in the CSU system, impaction is an important word, depending upon where you want to transfer and what the major is going to be. If you're not sure how to find that information, again, check with a counselor. A counselor can look that information up for you. In fact, you want to go to the website?
Yeah, happy to.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the internet and let's.
It's a scary place, though. Gotta be careful.
Yes. CSU impacted majors. And open that one up. Okay, so if you're wondering, this is the California State University information. They have a ton of information. This is one page that I go to from time to time. These are the campuses where all majors are impacted, so including San Jose and San Diego, but there are others. Now, if the CSU that you had in mind is not among these, but you're wondering if the particular major that you have in mind is impacted there. If you scroll down a little bit more, Hitesh, we can enter in a campus. Sacramento. Okay, and we'll click the upper division transfer, this button here. Okay, so when you do that, now you can see what the impacted programs are. Okay, that's what we'll do once we know where you're considering transferring to. Yes.
So the majority of your credits at a certain city college, you become a local to that area. This is my second city college, and the majority of my credits from a different one. Am I still local from the first city college? Or am I local from the one I'm meeting right now?
Generally, it's a combination of the two factors combined. Not only physically where you attend, but where did you complete the majority of your 16 for transfer? Okay, so if it was a, let's say, 15-45 split, then where you did the 45 would be considered to be where you were local, so to speak. Even though physically you might be now attending a community college close to where you want to transfer to, right? So that's sort of what they're looking at. Okay. Now, a few years ago, San Francisco State was an impacted campus. Recently, they changed their status. So they had impacted majors, but they changed their status. When they did that, that sort of changed the formula for them in terms of what they were looking at for local students. But there was a time a few years ago when if a student, let's say, started in San Diego County, attended San Diego City College, did 45 units there, physically moved to the Bay Area, attended CCSF, did 15 to 20 units here. They were looking at both how many they completed here versus San Diego City College, but they also factored in how long that student was a resident of the county of San Francisco as well. So that was something that they did. I can't say that that's going to be true system-wide, but that suggested that might come into play depending upon where you're considering transferring to. Okay, so it's sort of that combination, but there may be another factor that comes into play that we may not be readily or easily found in terms of that kind of detailed information. So,
Do you have any other tips for people that are applying to
yes, I would say.
Let's repeat that question. Sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Any of the tips for students that are applying to impacted majors? And I would say yes. So once you have identified the campus you're interested in, and once you know that it is an impacted major, I would suggest going onto that campus website, looking up impaction. Because oftentimes they will give you details for those impacted programs in terms of how much major prep is needed, the specific classes that they're looking for minimally, and the kind of GPA that they would say you minimally need to have to be competitive for the major. So dive into the campus website, see if you can find that information. If you cannot, then check it out. Okay. Good question. Yes.
What are some schools impacted? Let me know if
Can you repeat the question?
So, question is, why are some programs impacted? Does that suggest popularity or competitiveness? I would say both. So one of the things I want to bring up today is when you're considering applying for transfer, when you're ready, counselors would recommend that you try to apply broadly. So don't put your eggs all in one basket unless that's definitely where you want to go and you know the circumstances. It's going to be relatively easy, let's say, to transfer. So a couple of different scenarios. At San Francisco State, and let's see, can we do that potentially? Can we go to San Francisco State?
Just their main
campus. Oh no, I'm sorry. That same website.
Oh, sorry.
If you're on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just change the campus name. Okay, and then that's it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So for San Francisco State, they have engineering majors, and you notice it's not on this list. Okay. So engineering at San Francisco State is considered to be non-impacted majors. Okay. As non-impacted majors, all that you would need to get offered for admission is to meet those minimum transfer requirements that we saw earlier. Okay, the 2.0 GPA, the 6 units per transfer, the golden 4 as far as GE, and the majority of that GE sheet, that would be sufficient to get an offer from San Francisco State for their engineering majors. Okay. On the other hand, as you saw at the top, scroll up to the top a little bit. Okay, San Jose right? All majors are impacted. Okay, so on their website, they've got detail that says for every major, what kind of GPA that they want to see from students minimally. And then also on their website, they will say if there are particular majors in which they are expecting major prep to be done, what are those classes? That's the kind of detail that you want to see, right? So again, depending upon where you're thinking of transferring to, in the CSU system, impaction may come into play. Just be aware of that. And if you need any help sort of navigating your way through this process, again, check with counsel. Okay. All right. Okay, let's switch back. Here's the website that you'll go to when you're ready to apply. And now for UC. So similar to CSUs, UCs have minimum requirements as well. Okay, you okay on that? Okay. So they also require 6 units for transfer. The difference is that these are UC transferable units as opposed to CSU transferable units. Okay, there's a distinction. So for example, if you're going to take trigonometry at CCSF, that course transfers, but only to the CSU system. It is not transferable to UC. Okay, so if you're going to apply to both the CSUs and UCs, that particular course, 3 units count for CSU, or the 6 unit total, they do not count towards that. Right? These GPAs are going to be, again, UC GPAs slightly higher than CSU. And then what I'm going to show you next is what is called the 7-course pattern. You have to have 2 English composition courses by your final semester, 1 transferable math course, and 4 subject courses. And in these 4 subject courses, you must use at least 2 of these 3 subject areas. That's all part of minimum for UC transfer. Okay, so if you're considering applying to any UCs, this is step 1. You got to make sure you're on pace to do that by your final semester. Okay. Any questions about that? In terms of applying, the application is 1 application. In fact, that's true for the CSU too. Both are singular applications in which you would check off each campus that you're considering in that 1 application. If you want to check off 23 CSU campuses, that's fine. 9 UC campuses, that's fine. Within that, this is part of the information that they're going to be looking for in the UC application. Your academic history. How did you do? You're checking for your overall GPA, but they're also going to focus on major prep. Yeah, right? Did you do the major prep? What was your GPA for those courses in particular? Honors, I would say, is helpful, but you have to be careful if you decide to take any honors courses at CCSF. Honors courses will require an extra project to be completed. An extra project on top of everything else that you're doing, may be more than you can handle. If that is the case, then you have to be careful that your grades don't suffer. Okay, because bottom line is going to be this. If you have this with excellent grades, that's great. But if the honors projects become too much and grades suffer, then it's sort of defeated the purpose. Right? So just be careful of that. As far as the non-academic factors, for the competitive UC campuses and majors, they're definitely going to look at information like this, particularly that, I would say, leadership. So when you are considering doing sort of extracurricular activities, I would encourage you to consider whatever you can handle, given your schedules, maybe something that can be done on campus. So many students are involved in student clubs, for example. If the student was involved in a student club, let's say was an officer, for example, and if that were to have responsibilities that would include factors like that, that would strengthen the application. Okay? They're going to weigh everything. We'll start with by checking to make sure you do meet minimum requirements for transfer. So again, look at the academic work, we'll check GPA. And again, this collectively, may come into play. So just be mindful of that. Okay. This is the website for the UC application. And this application, when you get to this, it's going to have three main parts to it. Your academic history, you're going to have to answer what are called personal insight questions. Okay, there are 4 that are required to be answered. And then again, you do list extracurricular activities. Three main parts to that. Another FAQ. So when can I apply to university in engineering majors? All right, so for CSUs, I'll put this up too, for UCs. So generally, if you're considering starting in the fall term, that's a given. You can apply to either system for fall admission, okay? If you're considering a January transfer, okay, that's where it gets to be either, in this case, sort of a year-to-year decision, okay? In the UC system, there are 2 campuses currently that are accepting January starts for students. Either UC Merced, they're on semester basis, or UC Riverside, they're on quarter system. Okay, those are currently the only options. And if you're considering sort of that mid-year transfer, then those minimum requirements that have to be completed, the timing of that, you have to check with counselors, because you may have to complete, at least on the CSU side, those requirements by summer for a January start. It depends on what campuses we're talking about. Again, you know, they're transferring requirements and when they need to be done can vary from one campus to another. And so that's where it gets tricky and you want to check with counselors there. I hope you navigate again, you know, the timing of that. Okay, true or false? Students need to finish their GE before transfer. What would you say? True? True. False. True and false. So it depends. So there may be some institutions that prefer that you wait because they want you to really focus on major prep. So as I said at the very beginning, you may be doing that now, and that's great, but minimum transfer requirements is a must. Okay, so that combination for particular majors like engineering is usually the strategy that counselors would recommend, because for engineering majors, you have so many classes that you would need lower division to be competitive at particular campuses. And that's what we want you to try to devote your energy to, but at the same time, fulfill those minimum transfer requirements as well. Okay, so if you do that, then chances are you may not have completed all lower division GE in community college, and that can be okay, right? But it will again depend, okay, on where you plan to apply, right? And so that's where you want to see counselors to have that conversation and discussion. I need to stay at 7 units or less to be able to transfer.
False.
Okay, that is false. So students may have heard of this number. I need to explain this, and I tried to do on, I think, the following slide. Students hear this number of 70 as maximum in terms of what they can transfer, and they may, by the time that they complete all their work in community college, may have well over the 70. Let's say, hypothetically, you're going to have 90. So how does that work? If I have 90 units completed that I know transfer, let's say to UC, but they're only accepting 70, then does the student pick the 70? Does the university pick the 70? And the answer is neither is true. Okay, so let me try to explain. All right, so imagine that all these classes that you're taking, right, that everything is going to this bucket. This bucket represents all classes that transfer. Every single time you take that class, it's going in that bucket. That's why that bucket is growing. You got 90 units by the time you're ready for transfer. All 90 are used to calculate your grade point average for transfer. That determines if you meet minimum eligibility. It determines if you're competitive for your particular major. All units are counted. Okay? All right. And all those units are transferable. Let's say any requirement that you have fulfilled towards your bachelor's degree at that particular university, whether it's for your major, a graduation requirement, or a GE breadth requirement, you receive credit for it. Okay? No matter whether it's first class, last class, you get credit for it. Okay? But that max of 70 is set. Okay? They'll just make a notation that from the California community colleges, you're coming with 70 transferable semester units to that university. Okay. Need 120 semester units minimum, or on a quarter system, 180 quarter units in order to receive your bachelor's degree. That's minimum. You may wind up doing more. And so generally they're saying that you can come into the university with a little more than half of that total towards eventually getting your degree. Okay, so that's what that is. Any questions about that?
100% clear on that?
Yeah. Good.
Wow. Great. That's awesome. I love the golf ball.
Okay.
I don't play golf. I don't even know how to hit golf.
Okay. I need to earn an associate degree to be able to transfer. Yes. However, and this is not necessarily, for engineering majors, but I did want to mention this, that if you change your major, let's say you choose math instead of engineering, if you wind up getting an associate degree for transfer in what's called a similar major, then there are potential benefits at the universities, particularly the CSU campuses. Okay, so I want to mention that and keep that in mind. AP. Students have AP? So, yes. Okay. So AP can be helpful, but I guess the key word is this. That is tricky in terms of how you can apply it. To me, it serves multiple purposes, and you have to be clear about in what way do you want to use it. They all will give you transferable units towards the 60 that you need for transfer. That's a good thing. Okay. If anyone is following what's called IGETC, IGETC is a generic GE pattern that students may have seen the handout for. On the back of the handout, there is a table for AP exams. You can definitely apply your AP exams towards the IGETC general education areas, as is stated in the table. That can definitely work. If you're thinking that you can apply your AP exams towards your major, that's where it gets tricky. Okay, it might count, it may not count. It depends on your score. It depends on what that university establishes as equivalent courses based on your AP exam and score. Okay, so just be careful and mindful of that. If you're considering applying to any private schools, I would recommend that students go to this website to gather information. Anyone thinking about private schools, by the way? Okay, then I'll move on. Let's see. How do students find a list of courses accepted for transfer to private college universities?
You do have that good point about don't rule it out completely. Is that later?
Yes. Yeah. Because I think it's this one, yeah, that we want to go to.
Okay. Should we take a break now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's take a 10-minute break. So let's see, what time is it? Come back at 12 after. 12 after.
That's not that same articulation.